Hey everybody, how's it going? Let's talk about your home recording studio. Today, let's talk about preamps. I see in the forums and Facebook groups and everything that people really stress out over trying to figure out if they need an external preamp for their audio interface, and if so, which one and which is the best and all this stuff. So today, let's take a listen to several preamps and see if it makes a difference to you and your ears. And let's talk about what might factor into your decision, whether you need one or not. And if so, what are you looking for? So I have to say kind of first off here, if you're choosing to get an external preamp and the built-in preamps on your interface are doing everything you need them to do, but you're just looking for something to improve your sound quality, then I don't really think that's a great reason to spend the money, to invest the money in an external preamp. Now, the difference between the preamps that are built into your audio interface, if you've got just kind of an entry-level audio interface, one of those kind of $150 or under, those are all of them that I've used have all got actually pretty darn good preamps in them. Now, if the preamps in your audio interface are leaving something to be desired, something like they don't have enough headroom and you keep distorting them no matter, even if you turn the gain all the way down, or they don't have enough gain to where you're not getting a strong enough signal even with the gain all the way up, or if they're noisy, things like that, then sure, an external preamp most likely is going to address a lot of those problems. Now, I hear a lot of people also mention like, well, I want a color preamp. Yes, you can get preamps that are termed, colored, but it's still going to be pretty subtle. And I wouldn't go just purely with some sort of expectation that you're going to buy this box that's going to magically make everything you pass through it sound amazing. I'll be honest, I fell into that trap years ago myself, and I was pretty sorely disappointed. I had it in my mind that getting a better preamp was just gonna unlock this amazing sheen and everything is just gonna be radio ready right out of the gate. But the reality set in that like, oh, okay, it's just a preamp. It is a better preamp with better features, but it's just not gonna be that better maker that I was expecting at the time. Now, if you do go ahead and decide to go for an external unit, some of the features to take a look at. Number one, how much gain does it have? So if you've got something like a Shure SM7B or an SE RE20 or something like a really low output dynamic mic, and you just don't have enough gain on tap on your integrated preamps, then take a look at how much gain the preamp you're looking at actually adds. That'll be listed in the specs. And you probably want something that's going to add, probably 60 dB a gain or more, especially if you're going to power one of those low output mics. Also take a look at the headroom, like how much max headroom, because dealing with the units like the Focusrite 2i2 and the Steinberg UR22 really did kind of drive home that not having enough headroom can be a problem. If you're using either a really high output mic, or maybe you're going direct, like with a guitar with active pickups, and you even with the gain all the way down, it's still clipping and distorting, then that's another thing to take a look at. Although that spec doesn't tend to be listed, at the bottom of the page of the product page for most preamps, but maybe if you ask around or something, ask some questions about it to see what the headroom is like. Another feature that some external preamps will offer is inserts. Which can be handy, and they're definitely not a necessity, but they can be handy if you're wanting to put a compressor or an EQ or something like that in line between your microphone and the interface. So an insert is kind of handy for that. And yes, like I mentioned, the color or the kind of personality of the preamp, sure. There are things like the Tone Beast, and there's like all the 1073 and all the kind of Neve clones out there that really market, they kind of push that in their marketing about, oh, it's a colorful preamp. But, yes, they can be, but just keep in mind, it's going to be really subtle. And when you're getting into if you're talking about spending a couple of grand on a preamp or a multi-channel preamp or something, just know that it's going to be a pretty subtle improvement if the only reason you're buying it is for an improvement in sound quality. Honestly, I'd recommend taking that, couple of grand or however much money and investing it in a different microphone, one that suits your voice or whatever the subject matter you're recording is. That's going to make a much more dramatic difference right off the bat. And then invest the rest of it in sound treatment for your room, acoustic treatment for your room. That's going to make a pretty dramatic difference in the amount of ambience that your microphone picks up, and in the accuracy that you can get whenever you're mixing your projects in the first place. I think that's money way better spent than a whole bunch of money on a preamp that's going to give you just a subtle couple percent difference in sound quality. Now, really, I think the most legit reason for wanting to invest in an external preamp is because you simply don't have enough preamplified channels based on what you're recording. Let's say you're recording a drum set and you need, probably at least 4 microphones. You need one on the kick, one on the snare, and then maybe a pair of overheads. And you've got an interface with only 2 inputs, only 2 mic inputs. Well, yeah, what else are you going to do? You start trying to use splitters and janky stuff like that. It's not going to turn out very well. But if your interface has some spare line inputs, then an external preamp, like maybe a 2-channel external preamp, where you can take the line outputs of those, feed them into the line inputs of your interface, yeah, that's a perfect reason. Or maybe if your interface has ADAT connectivity, then buying an external ADAT preamp, like an 8-channel ADAT preamp, and just connect that ADAT light pipe up, and voila, you've got 8 more inputs, 8 more outputs. But that really depends on your interface. Your interface has to have that connectivity. But I think that's probably the most legit reason for wanting an external interface. You just need more inputs, and your interface has the capability to accept those inputs. All right, it's kind of a demonstration here. Let's actually listen. Let's listen to several different preamps at kind of varying price points, and let's see if, I'm kind of curious myself, if I can hear the difference, if you can hear the difference, and if you think just purely on sound quality, it's going to be worth making an investment. Okay, so what we're going to take a look at here is we've got a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 2nd Gen. We've got a Roland Rubix 22. We've got a Zoom H4n Pro. We've got the mic pre's on an RME Fireface UCX. We have hooked up via ADAT to that Fireface, or it is a Behringer ADA 8200. And then over here, we've got a BAE 1073. This is kind of the granddaddy of them all here in my room. It's a very high dollar preamp. It's a Neve 1073 clone. Above that is a DBX 286X. I'm going to leave that out of this experiment for today because I'm actually, I've got it hooked up to my camera, and that's what I'm recording through right now. So, all right, what I'm going to do is grab a mic that I actually like a whole lot, and this is a Lewitt LCT 440 Pure. So I'm going to just plug this mic with the same cable into each of those different devices, record a little snippet. We'll do this blind at first. I'm not going to tell you which is which at first. Let's just hear them blind. And then we can come back and reveal which is which to kind of see if the sound quality is consistent with the price point, whether it makes that much of a difference. Okay, this is example 1. We've got the Lewitt LCT 440 going into one of the preamps. Won't say which one quite yet, but here we go. Just get a little taste of what this one sounds like. Okay, and here is sample number 2. We're just going to talk into this for just a second here, kind of see how it sounds. I am recording all of this at 48 kilohertz. Hopefully I can keep the 48 kilohertz all the way through post. Hopefully, if there's any damage done to these samples, it's not my fault. Okay, all right, well, that's it for sample 2. Let's move on. Okay, here is the 4th sample. We're just going to talk into this one for just a little bit. I sure hope I can get all the gain levels kind of normalized between all these, since the human ear tends to hear things louder and interpret them as sounding better. So I'll try to gain match all these as much as I can. So yeah, this is sample number 4. All right, well, that's enough of that. Let's go on to the next one. All right, and here is sample number 5. Yes, again, hopefully we can get these all volume matched in post. Everything recording at 48 kilohertz, recording to 24-bit wave, and we'll keep that throughout the whole process, go through post and everything. So yeah, we'll see how this one sounds. All right, on to the next one. Okay, here's sample number 6. Yes, again, we're going at 48 kilohertz. We're going to a 24-bit wave. We'll keep that all the way through post. Try to get everything gain matched. But this is sample number 6 that we're listening to now. So, all right, well, on to the next thing. Okay, well, hopefully that was at least somewhat kind of helpful to hear them back to back to back. I would even just recommend going back, listening again through them. I just went back and listened through them myself. It was really the microphone that was the most influential thing in how it sounded, right? That frequency curve, that kind of high frequency lift, and those kind of nice flat mids and linear lows of that microphone. That really shone through all of those different preamps. It just didn't make a huge difference. Now, that being said, there were some subtle differences between all of them. I mean, I definitely have my favorite. Listening back, did any of those suck? I mean, do you really feel like any of those would be the limiting factor of you being able to get accomplished whatever you want accomplished in your home studio? No, no, they were all fine. I can't even really rank them because, I mean, really to me, it was kind of the Zoom at the bottom, but it was still fine. Everything else tied for second place, and then what turns out to be the BAE at number one. Again, maybe some confirmation bias. So let's go through and reveal which was which. So sample number one was the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. Yeah, I mean, it was the first sample I listened back to, and I was actually pretty impressed. Like, wow, yeah, it really does allow that microphone to shine. But then I listened to number two, which was the Roland Rubix 22, and same thing. Like, it sounded so similar, just a little bit less high end maybe on it. Then there was the failure of the Zoom, that was going to be number three. Number four was the integrated preamp on my RME Fireface UCX. I didn't really hear like an appreciable improvement, but you know, it's still just kind of a nice, clean, articulate preamp. Really, those preamps are great because they have a huge dynamic range. They've got plenty of headroom and they've got plenty of gain. They really don't leave much to be desired. Number five, yes, was the BAE 1073. It's also the most expensive preamp in the room. I did actually think it sounded at least like that much better, just because it had a little bit more fullness in the low end there, a little bit of that low end saturation kind of creeping in, just kind of a musical sound to it. But given its cost, I don't think that the amount of improvement that it brings is going to justify spending that kind of money if you're just going after sound quality. And number six was the Behringer ADA 8200. It's connected via ADAT into the RME, so I guess there's a little bit of the RME. You know, same with the BAE, it's going into one of the line inputs of my RME, so the RME, I guess, was kind of involved in more than one of those samples, but not its preamp. So with a high dollar thing like a BAE 1073, given that it costs about 20 times what one of these entry-level audio interfaces costs, yeah, it doesn't sound 20 times better. It might sound like 5% better or something. But what I like about it is that it's full featured. It's got a huge amount of gain. It's you can go line into it. You can go direct into it. It has a EQ built into it, and it has an input and an output, so you can really kind of drive the input section and compensate by turning down the output section. I had it set relatively clean. The output's all the way up, and then I just turned the input up to where I got a nice strong signal. So a little bit of that saturation starting to creep in there, which is a benefit, it sounds musical, it sounds kind of cool, but you can simulate that with a plugin, with the saturation plugin, really, so. Okay, well, I hope this was helpful to at least hear these things back to back, get a little info to help you make a decision on, do you really need an external preamp, or are the ones built in to your interface okay? All right, well, thanks a lot. I think that'll do it for me this time, and I will see you guys next time.